So today we've got total fire bans across the north of the state and the east of the state. We're in a period of a declaration of a state of disaster. And that's based on the fires that we've got across the state, but primarily in the northeast and East Gippsland. In the southwest of the state, we do have watch and acts in relation to fires, and again, it reminds us that there is the potential for new starts, new fires anywhere in our state. Last night, a number of people were evacuated from a camping area down in the Glenelg area as a result of a fire down in that area. Both those fires are at watch and act at the moment. We did see other fires yesterday in the west of the state. A great work by firefighters in the air and on the ground to round up those fires. Our priority very much is about keeping small fires small, keeping our fires contained, because we need to focus our efforts, our energy and our resources on the east of the state. So what we saw last night was some significant fire behaviour, but mainly in relation to those alpine fires. So around Hotham and Buller, the Abbeyard fires, we had some fairly clear air there, some fairly low humidity, and there was some movement on those particular fires. Not so much in the northeast, the Corryong fire, or in East Gippsland. What's working in our favour, although it's having a significant impact on communities, is the smoke in East Gippsland. So the smoke in East Gippsland is sort of holding down the fire behaviour in that particular area. We have seen wind gusts up to 67 kilometres an hour already today up at Mount Hotham, and it's predicted when the change comes through that we'll see gusts up to 80 kilometres an hour. The change has come through the west of the state. It's moved through Melbourne. It's moving now into East Sale at about 10 a.m, but we won't see that change until about 1 p.m. up at Wangaratta, 4 p.m. At Albury, and then not till about 7 or 8 o'clock will it be at Falls Creek, so out of the northeast. So we've got a long way to go today. Today is a very challenging day for all of us, and the Chief Commissioner will speak to this, but it's an opportunity for me also to thank the many, many Victorians that have heeded the advice on the back of the declaration of a state of disaster to leave those 6 local government areas. We know that with the southwest change that comes through, it will push some of that smoke away from the coastal areas of Gippsland. Once those fires become exposed to the sun, there is definitely the potential for some elevated fire activity there. In those alpine areas, there is the potential again for those columns, the pyrocumulus, to develop, where we can see those columns develop their own weather, so they can throw out their own lightning. So there's a potential for additional fires as a result of those particular columns, similarly in the northeast. So it's still a challenging day for us. We've got significant Forest Fire Management Victoria, Country Fire Authority resources, the MFB coming in to backfill the CFA station so they can free up more career firefighters. So it's a huge effort at the moment in terms of a lot of resources working so hard to keep our communities safe. So we still have those dynamic and dangerous fire conditions, the low humidity, the strong winds, and what underpins all of that, the state is tinder dry. It is really, really dry at the moment. For again, the community that have done such a good job, so many of them to leave, what we're talking about is about the fires we know. And if people are in these areas thinking, well, I'll wait for those fires to do something before I leave, then that's not the right thinking. If you're in that mind at all, you should be getting out now, because you don't know what new fires might start. Already there are a number of different road closures across the northeast and East Gippsland. And if you might be thinking about, I can get out on a particular road close to you, well, there's every chance that a fire could hit that particular road and you can't get out. We saw that a week ago with the Malakuta fire. You know, we had our going Gippsland fires, and then we had the Malakuta fire start. So within a matter of hours, the Princess Highway was closed, and we see that people are isolated down now in that part of the state. So please, if you're in any doubt whatsoever, if you know your local conditions, if you're keeping up to date with what's happening on the Vic Emergency app, if you're listening to the emergency broadcasters, and you can't get out, then you should get out. Now, if you've still got the time, you should be doing that. I'll ask the Chief Commissioner to say a few words.
Thanks, Andrew. So, as he indicated yesterday, Victoria Police were involved in supporting community through evacuations through the area regarded as the fire impact zone. That's in response to the direction under the State of Disaster Declaration. Victoria Police were tasked with that role, and so the last 24 hours we've been very busy in relation to getting people from those impact zone out into more safe territory. In relation to how that's been going, Victoria Police have been very pleased with community support, compliance and behaviour through the entire impact zone. Traffic flows have been significant, particularly out of the north-east, Upper Hume and through the high country. There have literally been tens of thousands of people moving out through those areas, and compliance in terms of people opting to leave. Estimates can vary a bit, but sort of between 60-70% of people spoken to by police have indicated they were intending to leave. There have been lesser numbers down through Gippsland in terms of people opting to get out and heeding that advice that they must leave. But that's mainly to be thought of there is the fact that people have been leaving for a number of days, so it's not an immediate thing for them. So people have been compliant and have been leaving. Traffic flows have been heavy. Again, motorists have been behaving very responsibly on the roads out through those heavy traffic flows, which has been of great assistance as well. So it's really heartening to see people that have been heeding warnings and have been behaving so patiently on our roads as they've been making their way out. So again, we're very grateful for that. For motorists that are on the road, just caution today, again, as Andrew Crisp indicated, fire activity is significant today. A lot of smoke out there, so that will add to the complexity of people on the roads today. So as well as watching out for those cars around you, be mindful of the fact that visibility will be low. You need to moderate your speed accordingly. In relation to that further evacuation process, probably at the sharper end of that, the record, find, reunite registrations have been going. Currently got 4,464 of those. Again, we encourage people to register if they're leaving the area. redcross.org.au. Those numbers aren't as high as the people that have left, because a lot of the people who are engaged in tourism that are leaving probably won't be thinking to register. This is more around your locals, hence those numbers being a bit different to the large amount of people that have left those areas. So redcross.org.au, and it's the number 1800 727 077 as well. In relation to hospitals, aged care facilities and vulnerable persons, those plans were enacted yesterday, and police were very busy with DHHS and local government in trying to make sure those plans were enacted. Those plans vary widely. In some cases they involve full evacuation, in others partial evacuation of patients that can be moved, elderly that can be moved. Others require stay in place and asset protection in relation to local incident control support through fire suppression support. So those plans have been implemented. In relation to people that are outside of those facilities and are regarded as vulnerable persons, of course we keep vulnerable person lists at the local level with local government, and we've sought to get to those people. There have been a few of those people we haven't been able to get to, but certainly most of those people have been contacted and reached, and they have made their decisions about those messages that we've given them that they must leave. So that's been happening, and we haven't had any issues around community behaviour or anything around that. It's all been all very positive. So again, grateful for that support from community as that's been happening, and we'll continue to monitor that through the day as this fire activity we anticipate increases from pretty much as we speak. Missing persons in relation to fires in areas that are already impacted, the number moves around a fair bit on that, but currently, as I talk to you today, that number's 21, and that number, as I said, moves around during the day, and I've even got a message as we're coming in just before to say that may be shifting again, but the number I'm giving you now is 21, as the advice I received a short time ago. We're trying to get into communities to, again, notwithstanding the fire activity, get into communities and look for those people and satisfy ourselves that those people are okay and safe and well. That work will continue. There are isolated communities that we have not been able to get into, and we were trying again last night via RAF support with aircraft to get into some of those areas, but the smoke hasn't permitted us to. We have got into some, but there are a number of areas that we still have not been able to get into where we know there are people. So that's an exceedingly concerning situation, and we have the operation set up ready to go as soon as that weather and that smoke particularly enables us to do that. We'll be in there, and I received some optimistic advice from Andrew earlier about the possibility of that through the course of today, and as soon as that becomes available we will be into those communities, and that will assist us with our missing persons work as well. We've put extra police on top of the additional police we already had out. There's more police, about 250 extra police going up into the north east as we speak to support the hundreds of police already there, and that's all about the consequence from today. Just again, we're planning for the worst here, and we're making sure that we've got enough numbers on the ground. Now, in relation to Malakuta, I think you're already pretty informed on what's happening there in relation to the vessel and the naval departures out of Malakuta yesterday, and we've seen footage already today of the first of those vessels arriving in Hastings. They're being received there, and then they're being bussed to facilities primarily at Somerville, as I'm given to understand, where that repatriation will take place, and they'll be able to meet with family and loved ones at those locations. We have a preparation for that vessel to go back, and Andrew Crisp will be making some calls on that in collaboration with the support from the ADF pretty shortly, I think. There are still people at Malakuta, and we've got additional 30 police going in there today to support the community locally there. That will involve community meetings as well. We also have a plan for a number of aircraft to go into Malakuta today, again, smoke permitting, to take more people out that subsequently want to go as a result of that changed situation in relation to the must-leave message, and those that then want to go, if there are additional there that weren't on the boat. Obviously those two boats yesterday, we'll be looking to get them out today, again smoke permitting, and again as that further backup plan for that vessel to head back, just to make sure that that is properly cleared once that vessel's resupplied. So that's the work happening down at Malakuta, and again we've seen some incredible footage through media outlets of some of the brave behaviour of community and the bravery shown by firefighting first responders, and I'm proud to say our police members as well down there, and we are committed through those additional police to making sure that we're continuing to support that community as best we can over the next 24 hours. So we stand prepared now as we go into today's weather to make sure that we are responding. Victoria Police is in support of fire agencies now in relation to the remainder of the day, supporting activity as is required as our firefighters respond to what was likely to be an expanding fire front through the course of the day. Thank you, Minister.
Well, good morning. So just firstly, I'm sure most are now aware that the second person who died during the sort of fires from Monday has now been identified as Mr. Fred Becker, Mr. Fred Becker, and I want to pass on my condolences and the condolences of the government to the family, to the community of Genoa, who will be suffering as a result of this, on top of the trauma they've already faced in relation to fires. So as we've heard today, we've still got a long way to go. We've got in the northeast, we've got hot, windy, dry conditions. We know, we've got communities that are facing temperatures in the sort of 44-degree range. That will continue for a number of hours, and then, as we've always said, both those hot conditions driving the fires, but once you see the southeasterlies and southwesterlies, which are likely to hit the northeast, so moving that fire around, is when you start to see really high risk behaviour. In terms of East Gippsland, we do have that smoke there, which is good and bad. It's good for fire, but it's bad for us to be able to get into communities, particularly those isolated communities, and try and provide options for people to get out or people to get access to satellite phones. As soon as it does clear, we will continue to do that in terms of isolated towns and Malakuta, but it will see some intensity on those fires again, and then particularly as the change moves through that area. I think Malakuta sees the change not till about 5 p.m. this afternoon. So we've got a long way to go in terms of both this afternoon particularly, and also into the evening in some of those communities. I want to thank Victorians. I know it's been a really, really difficult period. Evacuating. That is not an easy thing. Moving away from where you've been having holidays or where you live. To see the way that people in the northeast and East Gippsland have acted over the last 24 hours has been incredible. I want to thank them. I want to remind them that there is still danger out there over the next number of hours. To stay safe, to be with family and friends, go home, or to be in one of our relief centres where you'll get looked after there. But again, the way that you've behaved both with Victoria Police and on our roads has been absolutely exceptional, and we thank you for that. I want to thank some of the great work that was done, particularly late yesterday. We had a very concerning fire around the sort of Gisborne area that, if had taken off, would have caused absolutely, substantial property loss and potentially life loss. That was listed as a massive priority, and significant work was undertaken to get that under control. And that's the sort of, as we manage these fires in the northeast, as we manage the fires in East Gippsland, we have our firefighters and the team in here and at our incident control centres making sure that we get on top where we can of these other fires, so we don't see other communities devastated by these fires. I want to also thank all our Victoria Police members. They have done an incredible job to be in this position where they've been able to see so many people leave these areas, to do so in such a orderly and compliant way, and the effort they're doing there, but also in East Gippsland, trying to get satellite phones in, trying to get access to isolated communities, trying to identify and find people who are unaccounted for. It has been an incredible precision effort by Victoria Police, and I certainly couldn't be prouder of their efforts. Similarly, with all our emergency services workers, our firefighters, again, an enormous thank you. You are doing an incredible job. We've got many people who are also exhausted, who continue to be out there putting their hands up to be in strike teams, putting their hands up to be doing the incident control centres. Incredible effort, and it's through your efforts that we will get through this day as best as we can. So the message, please, again, keep following warnings, keep following advice. If you're given a directive, I just encourage you to follow that directive. So happy to take questions.
Just some questions on the isolated community. So you said you tried to get into a couple, but you haven't been able to get into all of them. Can you go through what communities they are?
Are you in a position to
yeah, we're not talking about the individual communities. There's 18 communities that we've been trying to get into. We've gotten into 2 of those last night, so there's still 16 we're trying to get into. The plan involves you go in there via RAF helicopter, you talk to the local community who's going to leave, and then following off the back of that we provide them with comms, and then a Chinook helicopter comes in with the support of the ADF, obviously, and an evacuation occurs. So there's a standing plan in place there, and that's really a live dynamic piece as we speak. As soon as they get notified that the smoke will allow entry, then they'll be into there through the course of the day. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, fella, yeah.
Is there an update on how many properties have been lost? I know crews were trying to assess damage to it
That's
yesterday.
Andrews, I guess.
Yeah, look, we're still working through that, and again, as we've been talking about trying to get into isolated communities, it's exactly the same in relation to assessing property losses. We're still talking about, the 10 to 15 up at Cudgewah, similar number at Corryong, Sarsfield 19, Buchan South 24, Wiwira. I believe there's 11 properties there, but again, we know there are significant losses, but we just need, and we know that people want to know, but we can only do it when it's safe to do so. But it's a priority for us to continue working through that.
How many people do you think are still within the impact zone?
Well, that's a difficult one to assess because there are significant numbers of people still in zones that have opted not to leave. So if you think through that total population, that region, the entire impact zone sits around 100,000, and we've had, an estimates up north of sort of 60-70% of people have left, and it's probably just under that down in Gippsland. So you can do your own maths around that, but it's there are still significant populations in those areas, and we'll be obviously working through today with the firework and the work that's been done around treating those fires as they come up today. But again, that just reinforces for us the need for people to be making sure that they're monitoring the messages on the app, because as fires move today, people need to monitor those as much as ever.
Is there still time for them to get out if they change their mind?
Well, there's probably Andrew's here.
Look, it depends on the conditions where they are at the moment. So that's where they need to keep across, that information so they can make those decisions. So, again, it's a piece about there's going fires, but we don't know about what new fires. So very much about local conditions at the time, and if there is an opportunity, then people should be doing that.
Is there still potential for those fires to merge with fires in New South Wales state?
Look, the greater potential around merging of fires with New South Wales is probably the Corryong fire, and there's a fire that's up in New South Wales again, further north, but it's heading in that southerly direction. So we've been looking at that for a few days, and there is some potential around that. A longer term piece with regards to our broader East Gippsland fires joining New South, I'd suggest that wouldn't happen today.
And the fires in East Gippsland, the Alpine region, where's those wind changes going to push them towards today?
So we're concerned on the two fronts. So with the northerly, it's going to push them down towards the East Gippsland fires, and then on the change push them further east into Gippsland itself. So again, where we've got many small communities, but at the moment we've got 6 evacuate now messages out there. We've got 6 emergency warnings, and we've got 14 watch and act. So 12 for East Gippsland and the northeast there. So again, it's difficult to go through all those communities, and that's why it's important for people in those communities to know how they can access that information. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.